Our country is not about one individual. And if someone doesn't understand that and attempts to control others through using the levers of power, they're about serving themselves. They're not about serving us. And that person is not qualified to be a leader.
This shakeup in Louisiana as incumbent Republican Senator Bill Cassidy loses the party's primary, which pushes the Trump-backed candidate, Congresswoman Julia Letlow, to a runoff race now. What this early election and others signal for the midterms just months away. NewsNation's Hannah Brandt live at the White House tonight with the latest details. Hannah.
Natasha, President Trump is already turning to his next political target after flexing his presidential influence last night there in that Louisiana race, as you mentioned. The president posting overnight on his Truth Social account, going after Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky, saying he is the worst and most unreliable Republican congressman in the history of our country. The president calling Massie an even bigger insult to our nation than Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, who suffered an unprecedented loss. President Trump urging voters to instead elect Massie's Republican challenger, Ed Galrain, in this Tuesday's primary election. The president has expressed growing anger with Massie over the past few months, especially after Massie voted against his so-called Big Beautiful Bill and led the congressional push to force the release of the Epstein files.
I'm running as an independent voice. I vote with the party 90% of the time, but 10% of the time they're bankrupting the country. Well, I think I'm going to pull it out. This is the most expensive congressional primary in the history of the country, I'm being told, over $30 million.
President Trump, though, is hoping to oust another Republican he sees as disloyal after seeing success in that Louisiana race last night, where Senator Bill Cassidy lost his primary election to Congresswoman Julia Letlow. Cassidy angering the president by being among a handful of Republicans to vote to impeach Trump in 2021. And after he expressed doubts about confirming Health Secretary RFK Jr., President Trump also taking to Truth Social to slam Congresswoman Lauren Boebert and Senator Rand Paul, both Republicans the president says he'd like to get out of office after they campaigned in support of Congressman Massie. Democrats are trying to flip the House and the Senate in the midterms, of course, and they would need to gain a net total of 3 House seats and 4 Senate seats if they want to win the majority back from Republicans. The Republican Party, though, is also facing a fight on the issue of affordability. Democrats are trying to blame the White House and Republicans for high prices. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson says the war with Iran is playing a major role in all of that.
Gas prices are too high because of that, and then that has an effect on how goods are transported to the grocery store and all the rest. So as soon as we get that straightened out, we will get back to the kitchen table issues, the economic issues that we put in place to make the economy grow.
The redistricting war may also play a factor in the outcome of these midterm elections. On Friday, the Supreme Court handed Democrats a defeat in their push to redraw the state of Virginia's congressional map. That would have given Democrats a chance to create more districts, more congressional seats that lean their way. This after Texas Republicans and California Democrats both redrew their own state maps to favor their respective parties. A new YouGov poll did find a large majority of Americans oppose partisan gerrymandering. Less than a third, though, of Americans are actually worried that these 2026 midterms will not be conducted fairly. So people still confident in our elections, Natasha.
And meanwhile, Hannah, the administration repeatedly mentioning Cuba as a potential target for military action. We now hear Cuba may be preparing for that possibility as well. What do we know?
That's right. You remember, you've heard President Trump threaten that Cuba is next on his list of places to order U.S. military action. Now, new reporting from Axios says Cuba has actually acquired more than 300 military drones, and they say Cuba is discussing plans to use those drones to attack U.S. military bases, including in Florida and Guantanamo Bay. Axios says the information comes from classified intelligence and could be used as a justification for the U.S. to take some military action against the island. Now, CIA Director, you may remember, John Ratcliffe did visit Cuba just last week. The agency was warning that the window for Cuba to negotiate with the U.S. will not stay open forever, Natasha.
Hannah Brandt live at the White House with that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.